it's Steve Marshall from Jenny and Friends here at Cozy 101.1, and I am sitting in with Dr. Kohli from she's the 9 News medical expert. Let me make sure I get that right.
Yeah.
And also at the Cherry Creek Heart of Aurora. So how you doing?
I'm doing great, Steve. How are you doing?
Good. You and I don't get the chance to do this very often together.
No, we don't. So I'm excited to chat today.
I am as well. This time around, we're going to be talking about multitasking.
Yes.
Now, what does that do for the brain? Because with my generation especially, and I know this is pretty continuous, parents have always taught us that that's a good thing and you should be able to multitask and try to do things. Maybe not so much?
No, in fact, the way that our brains evolved was to monotask, not to multitask.
Okay.
So every time you multitask, think about it like many tabs open on your computer. You're essentially paying a price for something called task switching, when you're switching from one task to another mentally. And so your efficiency and productivity actually go down about 40%. And this is surprising to me because I consider myself the queen of multitasking.
Yeah.
I'm checking email, I've got my food, I've got my phone, I've got everything going together. But when you do that, you're actually more prone to make mistakes as well. And it consumes glucose at a faster rate in your brain. So you also get a faster mental fatigue when you're multitasking. So we really didn't evolve to have multiple tabs open. We evolved to have one tab open that gets our undivided attention.
So it is kind of like computers in the sense that it's not a true multitask. Like our brain actually has to very quickly, obviously, switch from this to that.
That's exactly right. The brain has to say, okay, now I was on this activity, my focus was here, and I'll switch to something else. So now if you think about one of the most common, what's called media multitasking, we're watching a movie on Netflix, but we're also on our phone.
Yeah.
And we look up and we catch a dialogue from the movie, and then we look down and we look at our Instagram feed, and all of a sudden now the brain is literally spending efficiency, energy, every time it switches from one task to the other. And since you're doing it so often, it's more and more prices that you're paying. So over time, they've looked at the brains of people that chronically multitask. They actually have less density in their anterior cingulate cortex, which is the part of the brain responsible for attention. They have an increased risk of anxiety disorders and depression. Because again, it triggers stress hormones every single time you do that. And so in the short term, it feels great because you're like, okay, got a little hit. I got this done. I got this done. But it increases the stress hormones over time, so it can even have effects on your blood pressure, your heart rate, those types of things.
Now, I heard something once, and I don't know how true this is, so hopefully you can clear this up, that the younger generations, maybe starting with millennials on down, that they almost their brains are getting more wired to handle this. Is that not true?
So I will say what's true about it is that they're doing more multitasking as kids and adolescents than we ever did. Right, in our generation. And that's partly because they're on screens a lot more than we are. But their brains are not wired to handle this any better. In fact, if you look at the data in kids who often multitask, they have more attention problems. They have more behavioral problems at school. They perform poorer academically. But here's the interesting thing. Their insight, their perception is that they're doing better when they're actually doing worse. So they think they're doing better, and that's where the disconnect is. But if you actually look at them on objective tests, they do a lot worse. So even the kids' brains really not designed for that. In fact, as you know, a child and an adolescent's brain is much more plastic. So one would assume that it can handle many things at the same time. But because it's more plastic, it needs to learn how to focus on one specific thing. And if it doesn't do that, when they grow up to become adults, that's when those attention problems start to come in. And we know we're seeing a rise of ADD, for example, attention deficit disorder happening kind of globally. It's become an epidemic.
Interesting. So is it ever okay to multitask, let's say? And then do you have any suggestions for getting the most out of our brain?
So it is okay for depending on the types of tasks. So for example, if I'm folding laundry and I'm talking to you, those are two different types of tasks for my brain. And talking doesn't require nearly as much attention, right? But doing two tasks that require attention, like watching a movie and being on your phone or being on a Zoom call and checking your email, those require a different degree of attention. So not okay to mix two high attention tasks, but it's okay to talk over dinner. So there you're eating and talking. I mean, I still like to say be mindful of your food, concentrate on your food and all those kinds of things. But in terms of what it's doing to our brain and our attention, it's not taxing our brain in the same way. So those two types of tasks are okay to mix. And for example, if you're brushing your teeth and listening to a podcast,
right,
that's probably okay, right? Because you don't really have to concentrate
you don't
on
have to
brushing
focus
your
too hard,
teeth as
yeah.
much. But really, I want us to start thinking, like I said in the beginning, about what's called monotasking. And I'm trying to do this in my life. I'm trying to be very mindful, which is that let's turn off notifications for 20 to 30 minutes.
Yep.
Let's not check our email multiple times a day, but make like email checking times during the day, because every time you check your email, you're paying that price of task switching, especially when you're going from email to email, because you're also thinking of different tasks as you're going through the emails. And then if you are doing something, whether it's watching a movie, whether it's, spending time with your child, whether it's playing a video game, focus. 20 to 30 minutes.
Right.
That's the minimum amount of time I want you to focus before you switch to another task, because that allows our brain to learn how to develop memories, learn how to, function better.
Right.
If we keep task switching, our ability to even form long-term memories starts to become impaired.
See, now you've got a good reason to not multitask all the time and try to get too much done. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve. Nice talking to you.